So this mom writes, I believe this is a mom, with an 18th birthday about 6 months away, and after years in this difficult situation of all the outsiders affirming and not us, we're looking for advice about messaging. We've kept the relationship strong, but our daughter is fully immersed in gender ideology and gunning for medicalization. What are the most important things for her to hear from us? So, years and years in this difficult situation with outside affirmation and no affirmation in the home. So I hear the mom here, or the parent saying our relationship is still strong, but she's immersed in gender ideology. I would be interested if this mom was here to ask if this has become an elephant in the room situation, or have you explicitly talked about gender in a significant way? Is this a topic that you can't touch? Your daughter being highly indoctrinated based on your question makes me think this is very hard to approach. Now, it's a bit challenging to try when she's just about to turn 18 to start having those difficult conversations now. She's moving into this phase of life where she is going to be able to make a lot of adult decisions without your say whatsoever. So typically when it comes to young adults, I encourage for parents to have a pretty direct conversation about what they feel is best while still kind of honoring that your child is going to have full autonomy, right? So it depends a lot on family dynamics. If this is a kid who feels very dependent on her parents and she doesn't have a lot of independence, there's not many areas of her life where she feels really competent and capable and independent, it's going to be very hard for her to hear more of the boundaries and the guidance conversation. However, if she's a kid who's otherwise in a pretty good independent place, then I think it's okay to explain what the limits are for university. So I'll give you an example of how that might sound. I think it could be very valuable to say something like, look, honey, as you approach 18, you're going to have a lot of adult decisions that you're going to be making, and we'll always be here to support you and guide you, and we're happy to help you in all the ways that are appropriate for an 18-year-old. But we don't support in any way any kind of medical intervention that happens before you are financially independent, you've had some long-term relationships, you're done with university, you've gone to therapy to have a proper exploration of what this means, what the consequences are, and what this would look like for your life. So even though you will technically be 18 and we couldn't stop you if you decided to move forward with these medical steps, we just want to be very clear with you that we don't think it's a good idea to do anything like that until you're about 25 and you've been able to, your brain will be fully developed, but also you'll have that independence, that experience, you'll know yourself a little bit better. And by then, identity tends to be a bit more solid in general, not just gender, right? But your sense of who you are as a person. And of course, we're always growing and changing. So even that is in my opinion, still a risky thing to do, right? Just between me and you guys. But I think that's a framework that you could offer without it necessarily being like a contract or rules. Now, I want to say some families decide to kind of establish a very clear contract or parameters with their young adult child who's going off to university or something like that. And each family has to decide for themselves if that is the best choice. I've definitely met families where they have an 18-year-old, but that young person's emotional maturity and psychological sophistication is very, very young. So they're not really probably capable of making some decisions that other 18-year-olds are capable of making. So you may need to still have a little more structure for this young person around medicalization. On the other hand, in some families, it's actually very important to kind of loosen the reins so that that young person can develop capacity and capability and independence. So it really is individualized. I don't want to give you a formula, but I would say it's important to acknowledge her autonomy. So you might say, look, we understand that as soon as you turn 18, you will have full freedom to do whatever you want, and we can no longer, as your parents, put guardrails on that. However, what that means is that you're also responsible for being your own best advocate. And that means you being the most concerned person about health outcomes. You being the one who wants to research every possible thing that could go wrong with your surgery. You being the one that has to think about how is taking a medication or having a surgery going to impact my ability to function at school and feel healthy and pursue my other goals in life. Like, you have to be the one to take responsibility for those things, because as a child, we had to think about those things on your behalf. But now that you're going to be a young adult, you have to think about those things on your behalf. So I'd like to say something like, I want you to really think about this. Don't do anything to your body to prove something to us. Don't make a medical decision to prove something to us. Any decision you make is something that you fully have to live with for yourself. So don't make decisions in order to kind of show mom and dad that this is true or something like that. That is a very dangerous reason to take huge decisions about your body and your health. So that's another thing that you might consider saying to her. And, you may also talk about the limits of transition. So you could say, now, at the end of the day, you're the one that has to, be okay in your body. So if you decide to take medical steps, our concerns about it. But we also expect that if you make that choice, you're going to investigate what the limits of transition are. So can you actually become a guy? Can medicine turn you into a guy? No, it cannot. It can turn you into a female with a masculinized appearance, but you will still be biologically female down to every cell in your body. So if you understand the limits of what medical intervention can and cannot do, that's part of what it means to make responsible adult decisions. Like, you have to investigate these questions yourself, not to prove it to us. So, in general, when I'm talking about these conversations with young adults, it's very important to shift the locus of responsibility to the young person. Young people often want more freedoms and freedoms and freedoms. I almost, it's funny hearing me say this now, because maybe 10 years ago, I wouldn't have ever thought this way. But coming along with those freedoms are the responsibility to actually take ownership of the consequences of your actions, right? So if you are going to make these medical decisions, you better know damn well, like, what's coming down the pipeline, or what are possible things coming down the pipeline. That's the problem with affirmative medicine. It doesn't really take its time giving people clarity about what the possible outcomes are. So I hope that's helpful.